Hello all, very good morning, afternoon and evening to you depending on where you're connecting from. I am Sagnik Datta, Technical Marketing Specialist at Citrix Ready team, and that's bringing you this webinar. This webinar is part of the Citrix Ready Technical Webinar series where we showcase how Citrix and our partners have integrated to deliver valuable products and solutions to common problems faced by our customers. I welcome you all to today's webinar where we will be diving into how Citrix and Pure are transforming technology delivery in healthcare with virtualization. Next slide, please. Right, so what is Citrix Ready? Well, Citrix Ready is an end-to-end technology partner program that showcases and recommends third-party products, solutions, and services that demonstrate compatibility with Citrix products. We help customers make better purchase decisions when choosing Citrix. Customers can easily and quickly find the solutions that we recommend in our Citrix Ready marketplace at the web link shared below, citrix.com/ready. And if you're interested to learn more about the Citrix Ready program, you can navigate to the partner program page at citrix.com. Next slide. Moving on, we have a host of speakers for today. We have Vic Nagji, who is the VP and CTO of Healthcare Solutions at Pure Storage. We have Christian Boucher, who is the Director and Evangelist for Healthcare Solutions at Citrix. And we have Paul Stage, our joint customer, who is the IT Director at OBGYN of Indiana. And I'll be rolling over the dice to our speakers very soon now. One quick housekeeping item to keep in your mind for the questions. We have a question panel on the GoToWebinar screen at your right-hand side. So questions during the webinar will be addressed during the Q&A session at the end, but do feel free to type in all your questions along the way. All right, now, let me now hand it over to Vic, VP and CTO of Healthcare Solutions at Pure Storage. Hey Vic, I welcome you to the technical webinar series and over to you.
Hi, thank you. This is Vic Nagji. Very, very pleased to be here today. I believe we're having a few issues right now with the slides. We're working on trying to move the slide forward, so just bear with us for a second. I'm just going to give Ray a second here. There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, I just wanted to start out by introducing myself quickly. My name is Vic Nagji. I'm the Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for our Global Healthcare Solutions at Pure. Very, very pleased to be here with you today. Spent most of my career, or if not all of it, in healthcare IT. Most recently, I was the Chief Technology Officer at Epic, and I was responsible for starting up and building out the Epic hosting business, which is a service provider business. So we leveraged a lot of Citrix technologies. So very happy to be here on with Citrix, and also selected and deployed Pure for our storage platform. So just a little bit on where we are. So Ray, if you could move on to the next slide, please. So thank you, Ray. Pure today has just about 2,000 customers, and we've grown from 0 to 2,000 in a little over 4 years. We have over 50 of the Fortune 500 customers. So we're ranked 7 in the top 20 SaaS. So a lot of the SaaS providers in the infrastructure service, software as a service, consumer cloud use Pure today. So we're very well positioned for both on-premise deployments as well as cloud deployments. We have had the distinct pleasure and honor of being ranked a leader in the Magic Quadrant by Gartner for the 3rd straight year. And if you actually look year on year, we're making progress in the right direction, which is the top right. So we continue to innovate and we continue to lead and set the scape for the rest of the industry and the rest of our cohorts to follow, essentially. And the last one is a really interesting point where we have a very important philosophy across the company, which is our goal is to ensure that we have really, really happy customers. And we measure customer satisfaction, customer happiness by a barometer called the Net Promoter Score, which is essentially a very simple question. We just ask our customers a simple question, one question. How likely are you to recommend our product to a friend? And some of the numbers you see over here, as certified by a company called Satmetrics, so they audit this data to make sure that the sample size is large enough, it's fair, et cetera, et cetera. 63% of iPhone owners recommend the iPhone to a friend. 70% of global high-tech businesses in general recommend their products to their friends. The high-tech average is around 16%, and if you actually look at some of our competitors in this particular space from a storage standpoint and infrastructure in general, they're in the teens as well. So we're very proud that we're in the 83.5 range. If you look at our support numbers, they're even higher than that. So we're very customer focused, and we'll be touching a little bit on that with Paul as well as our joint customer. Ray, next slide, please. If you could just build it out, thank you. So yeah, sorry, we're having a little bit of a lag here. Pure's value proposition in healthcare is very, very simple. The whole premise is we have an environment, which is healthcare, where literally lives are on the line, and lives are at stake, businesses are at stake, top line, bottom line revenue on top of everything else, and it just has to be always on. So if you look at the four main drivers that the C-suite at healthcare organizations continue to have, which then form the basis for the kinds of things and policies and programs that they promulgate throughout the rest of the organization. The main four things are reducing TCO, enabling innovation somehow based on limited resources, definitely improving the clinician experience, because you can't have unhappy clinicians because bad things start to happen, and then massively reducing the risk for the organization. So not only reducing risk from a data standpoint, but also reducing patient risk and so on. And our value proposition is that we're positioned as a platform to enable innovation in healthcare. We're positioned very nicely right in the center of that. We provide a value proposition and a platform that is what we consider to be, or I consider to be anyways, an invitation for innovation for free, essentially, because you move to this particular platform and you get to a point where you are able to take advantage of various things within your IT infrastructure and architecture that you weren't able to do in the past. So very happy to be here, happy to chat more and answer questions as we get further along. But I'm going to hand it over to Christian over at Citrix now for some introduction from the Citrix side.
Thank you, Vic. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our listeners. I'd like to thank you for participating in this webinar. It's an honor to be working with Pure. Vic and I had the opportunity to catch up at Chime last week, which was a great event, and hopefully some of you were able to attend. So at Citrix, our real goal in our company philosophy is the secure delivery of apps and data to any device, on any network, at any time. And you can see how we have partnered with organizations like Pure to better enable customers to deliver that. If you look at our portfolio, we have quite a few offerings, and a lot of them have been used quite successfully in healthcare. If you look at just this slide here, 100% of the top U.S. providers and top U.S. news honor roll hospitals utilize Citrix. We have Citrix implementations for tens of thousands of users across multiple continents. Our products deliver very critical data to clinicians and physicians and customers in real time across any device. And our goal really is to enable that ability at the same time enabling IT organizations to deliver secure data in real time and optimize their staffing performance as well. So when we look at a lot of our bigger customers and our biggest really is Cerner, who we have a number here of 250,000 concurrent seats, but we actually have gone over that number, approaching more like 350,000 concurrent seats running in environments across the nation, across the world. One of the key aspects for Citrix has been the ability for us to modernize the way organizations deliver content. You know, every organization that I've spoken to is looking to, you know, transform their organization, being able to deliver, you know, real-time, you know, EMRs or other ambulatory applications to their staff who are mobilizing, who are extending outside of hospitals into care centers, ambulatory centers, radiology clinics, even some of these quick clinics. You know, how do you deliver that content, you know, with the same experience that they would expect from when they were inside the hospital? So our goal really has been to, you know, partner with organizations like Pure, who look at things the same way we do, is being able to increase performance, increase scalability, cut down total cost of ownership, and deliver high quality experiences to our customers and to the patients they care. Next slide, please. So with Citrix and Pure, we have, you know, some common goals in working within healthcare. You know, we always have the same, you know, when you look at, you know, what we hear from our customers, it's improving, you know, clinician access, workflows, and experience, not only for the clinicians and the practitioners, but also for the customers, which in essence are the patients. But if we can enable, you know, fast interactions with applications and data and technologies, it allows clinicians to spend more time really taking care of their patients. So as we develop technologies, you know, individually and combined, we try to focus on that. How do we deliver the best performance, the best security, and the best experience for our users? Mobility has been a large play, especially in the last few years. We've seen a lot of talk about the next smart patient rooms with clinicians going in and out, grabbing data in real time from connected devices. And in some of our work in this field has also moved into the IoT of things with an acquisition that we made maybe about a year and a half ago called OptiBlue, and allows us to really mesh those devices and sync them to devices, people, and processes in real time, and allowing us to be able to stage it on technology such as, you know, Pure and solid state, and it allows us to really, you know, deliver the content in real time and guarantee some, you know, great expectations from our customers. Well, at the same time, when you look at all this data going back and forth across wireless networks, across unknown networks, non-trusted, it's key to really balance security with that without really disabling use cases within the organization. So our goal really has been to always simplify security, build it directly into our products where it's almost invisible to the end user, but in real time, security is point to point, and when you look at some of the granular controls that we've built into our solutions, it allows organizations to really manage risk and allow, you know, the most robust environment for their clients to really, you know, utilize technology. For this, I'd like to pass it back over to Vic and talk a little bit about one of our customers.
Great, thanks for that, Christian. Yeah, you know, just one item that I'd like to touch on before we hand it over to Paul. You know, Christian, you mentioned a very important point around improving clinician access, workflow experience, and the mobility aspect. You know, it's probably one of the top, if not the top, initiatives that we've seen across the board for healthcare customers around the country and definitely around the world. So without further ado, I'd love to pass it on to Paul Stage. Paul is from OBGYN of Indiana, and Paul's here to talk about his journey at OBGYN and a little bit about OBGYN. So Paul, without further ado, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Vic. Appreciate the opportunity. So a little bit about us. We're a 40 provider group. We've been around since about 1993. We're primarily based in central Indiana. We have 90 locations throughout central Indiana, which is basically right around the Indianapolis area. I have a staff of two IT people and about 175 users. So we see roughly 90,000 to 100,000 patients a year at each of our locations. So the next slide, please. So our IT environment, I like to keep it pretty clean. We have Prime Suite from Greenway Health. That's both our EHR and our PM. All of that's ran on a SQL database, which is housed on VMware ESX55. We have 3 hosts. Everything's virtualized with VMware. And then we have Citrix XenApp 6.5 running on top of that. Everything's made available to our end users through NetScaler, which is, of course, Citrix's load balancer. That not only balances our storefront, but it also balances our Greenway application servers as well, so we can enable high availability for those. Of course, the backbone for everything here is the Pure Storage Flash Array M20. Next slide, please. So I joined OBGYN of Indiana in 2011. They were with Allscripts prior for their EHR. They were running on a legacy version of Citrix. I've had extensive experience with Citrix. It's a good product over RDP, so it was kind of a no-brainer to stick with Citrix when we went to Greenway in 2012. Like I said, we do have the NetScaler for load balancing, Greenway application servers and storefront, which enables that high availability. So within our environment, we've been able to build up Prime Suite, bring them in, as we're one of their largest Citrix clients as well. So we're kind of bringing Citrix to other Greenway users and leading the way for that. But we noticed when we went to Greenway, there was a lot of slowness that we needed to address. So Pure helped us speed that up a little quicker. Next slide, please. So the challenges are we are an IT staff of 2, which for a couple hundred users dispersed throughout a metro area is challenging at times. We were experiencing some high latency, up to 30 milliseconds, and that's not during backups. That's during production hours. So we knew something needed to change. We tried to go with another vendor for the approach of no forklift upgrades. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out well. We ran out of space, and we were essentially backed into a corner that made us explore other options, which I'm thankful we were able to. Toppled on top of that, with only 2 people, we do need to manage everything centrally. We can't be going to users' workstations, installing local software, anything like that. So Citrix was key in that aspect. Next slide. So what this has allowed us to do is it's allowed us to focus on our clinical results, our actual business models, the things that an IT department of a healthcare organization should be doing. We shouldn't be focusing on storage, managing storage. We need to focus on things like mobile access for physicians, telemedicine, PQRS, patient engagement, all of those things that are important to a patient to improve the quality of care. Now, what Pure and Citrix have allowed us to do is to work on things like that. So we've seen things like our practice website, which we house. It's much more responsive on SSD, of course, and it enables us to deploy products such as Phreesia, which is a patient registration system, allows patients to sign in, fill out their paperwork on a pad, swipe their card right there, which enables us, of course, to collect more money right up front. Next slide. So just as an example of this, thanks to Pure and Citrix, we're able to deploy this Phreesia product, which allows us to start focusing on things like how long is the patient in our waiting room? How long are they waiting to see a physician in the waiting room or sitting in the room? How long does it take them to fill out their paperwork? This is one of many dashboards available to us now that we can look at and actually see what's going on and tweak our process and procedures to get the patients and to see the provider more quickly and get more accurate information the first time. Next slide. So I went over some of the benefits of Citrix and Pure. It does support a dispersed medical workforce. Our physicians need to access our EMR anytime, anywhere, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They need to do this not only from a workstation, but a laptop, which physicians don't always have. So they need to access it from a mobile phone sometimes. Citrix allows us to do that. We get instantaneous screen refreshes. Our latencies have improved from 20 to 30 milliseconds to sub-milliseconds. And of course, that's going to have a positive effect in seeing the patients. And what benefits me most is if I run any report, it used to take 5 minutes. I'm getting those in 5 seconds now, which is great. Next slide. So some of the things to keep business operational, we do test backup methods quite frequently. So file restores 3 to 5 minutes prior, or 15 minutes prior, sorry, we're now able to restore those in 3 to 5 minutes. We have a simple set and forget experience, so we can focus on more of those strategic initiatives such as patient improvement, patient engagement, and all that nice fun stuff that we actually should be focusing our efforts on. And of course, lower storage infrastructure costs compared to spinning disk as well, which to us initially was quite surprising. Next slide. So that's basically OBGYN of Indiana in a nutshell.
Excellent, Paul. Thanks. So this is Vic again. So Paul, if it's okay with you, I'd like to lob a few questions at you, just to get the crowd warmed up, if you will, so that we can then open it up for Q&A for the rest of the folks that have joined us today. Paul, there's a few questions that come top of mind that I'd like to touch on, about 3 or 4 specifically. So, I know you've touched on it during your talk here, but if you could elaborate a little bit around what are, for you and for your organization, what were some of the core reasons why you ended up choosing Pure, and then also a combination of Citrix and Pure over other competitors? So, we have a lot of other competitors in the storage space. There's, VMware in the virtualization space. So if you just walk us through what brought you to picking both of these solutions and both of them together.
Absolutely. Well, both of them together, that's basically going to allow our physicians to access our system and get that patient data real time very quickly. Why we went with Pure, it was really quite simple. Price, of course, for a practice of our size is always at the forefront. Pure was very competitively priced. You really don't have to do anything to Pure. As a matter of fact, I checked my logins on the array just to see how often I logged into it. And over the past 6 months, I can see, when I did get the array, I was logging in every day, just seeing what was going on. It's pretty interface, to be honest with you. But after that, I only log in about 1 time a month. So it is essentially you set it up, and you don't have to provide a whole lot of maintenance to it. The most important thing to us is the support philosophy of Pure, and that it aligns with OBGI. You mentioned earlier you had a Net Promoter Score of 84.5. We have a Net Promoter Score of 85. So our patients are very important to us, and we want to work with a company that also values us as a customer.
That sounds great. For us, it's really fulfilling and rewarding to be able to work with a company who values patient patient and customer satisfaction really as much as we do. So thank you for the continued challenge there. Paul, you touched on a couple of things as part of the answer to that, so I'm just going to build on that for a few minutes here, if you don't mind. You mentioned that you just set it and forget it, right? I'm kind of putting words in your mouth there, but essentially it was like you set it and forget it, and you just move on. Can you just tell us a little bit about, what challenges you had along the way? Because you surely must have had some challenges as part of deploying the Pure infrastructure, the Citrix infrastructure, an entire complete overhaul of your environment. Can you just talk a little bit about your challenges and how you overcame them?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to say we didn't have any, but we don't have any that actually I remember. The hardest part was removing the array from the box, which is heavy for 2 people to do. If I had to find something, it would probably be the chat configuration, but that's just a pain to set up in general. We use both inbound and outbound, so ensuring those keys are both set up on both sides of the VMware side and the Pure side, it just takes time to make sure you're entering it properly. It probably took us about 30 minutes to get the array up and running at our data center, and to be honest with you, a lot of that time was social time, discussing where to go for lunch. So it really, and I was quite a skeptic, but it really is the simplest implementation I've ever done.
Well, that's great. That's really good to hear. Now, Paul, one of the things around that, so that was let's just say the acquire phase, right? The acquire and install phase. Let's talk a little bit about the run phase, since this has been up and running. Can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been with our support organization around, software upgrades? Talking a little bit about out to the future in terms of when you're planning on adding on either more data or looking out to an upgrade to your array. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what your experience thus far has been and what your expectations are based on what you understand of Pure's value proposition?
Absolutely. That's actually one of the things that our CFO liked is I have a set price that I've got in my budget, and that covers things such as growth. If I want to grow, it's very easy to add storage. Every 3 years, I'm going to get an upgrade for that controller, so I'm not going to have a performance issue. Dealing with support, I really haven't had any issues. The issues I have been switch related, which Pure went above and beyond. They actually helped me diagnose an issue with one of my switches. I knew it was a switch, but to be honest with you, I wanted to test the Pure support. So I opened a case with Pure. They obtained not only my Pure logs, but my switch logs, my VMware logs, and their analysts went through and analyzed it and told me, hey, your switch has got a problem. But you know what? Just to make sure you're comfortable, I'm going to go ahead and send you a new controller just to make sure it's not Pure. So it's been nothing but positive on the Pure side.
That's great. That's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that our support organization continues to go above and beyond from that perspective. The next couple of questions before, Paul, we open it up to the audience for general questions. During the buy phase, right, for an organization of your size and the organization that's trying to be as nimble as you are, one of the things that really struck me when we first had our conversation, Paul, was around your organization's adoption and focus really on patient satisfaction and your adoption of things like Phreesia, where patient engagement and patient experience are at the forefront rather than the nickel and dime aspect, or even rather than sort of saying, okay, well, they're going to come in and they're used to a certain status quo and certain way of actually going through the entire system, and it's worked for them in the past, right? So given all of that, what did you and your CFO look at from a TCO standpoint, right? So Pure's value proposition is really, really great from a TCO standpoint as you look at it from 5 years and beyond, right? It's as expensive, if not, a slightly higher in certain cases than some of our competitors from an upfront purchase acquisition standpoint. So while your overall CapEx over 5 years and beyond is a lot lower, the initial CapEx is about the same, and then your OpEx is definitely a lot lower. So how did you actually, what did you do from a due diligence standpoint to convince yourself and then further convince your CFO that this was the right approach?
Well, we definitely compared other vendors as well. We did our TCO over a 7-year period, and what we found out was quite surprising. We had some spinning disk in there, we had a hybrid solution, and we had another solid-state solution. And without sharing the numbers, Pure actually came out on top. So we're not able only to get the product we wanted, we were able to get it less expensive or at the same price as our other competitors. So that was quite surprising, and our CFO was all over that. There really was no argument to it.
Well, that's great. And one more question, Paul. And this is a little bit of a tough one, right? And I end up feeling this question several times a day. At times, it seems like Pure in general is, so folks consider Pure to be relatively newcomer, right? We've been around for 7 years, right? So we've been around a long time, but we're still considered newcomer to the block. And there's, some of our competitors have been around for a very, very long time. So in the marketplace, within certain factions of society, from an industry standpoint, there's some uncertainty. So I'm just curious as to how you and your organization got past the uncertainty and made the decision to buy Pure on the basis that Pure is viable today and is going to continue to innovate and be viable in the future. If you just give us a little bit of an understanding there, that'd be great.
Yeah, we kind of took multiple approaches on that to do our due diligence. The first thing we did was we spoke to several current Pure customers to see how satisfied they were. Not only the ones provided by Pure, but ones that we've sought out. We performed independent research using tools such as Gartner, which, as you shown earlier, has Pure rated as a leader. Since we went to Pure, they've only improved in that quadrant as well. So that's been reassuring for us. But the most useful was we actually did the proof of concept. So we loaded our entire production environment onto the array prior to purchasing it. That way we could see the true performance of the environment and how it was going to perform. You can do workload simulators. We can get other tools to test performance, but that might give you a general idea, but I'm not going to use those in my production environment. So I wanted to see exactly how it was going to perform with my current production environment, and it surpassed the competitors.
This is Christian. Just had a quick question regarding what has the impact been to your end users? Have you heard, positive feedback on performance and in general system availability from implementing Citrix and Pure together?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, we've had Citrix all along, so they really knew the benefits of Citrix already. Where we found Pure come into play is when we switched to the Pure array. Of course, your users aren't going to be calling you and say, "Hey, this is faster." That usually doesn't happen. But what did happen was the calls of slowness basically, I don't want to say went away, because our Greenway database is quite complex, but they decreased dramatically. Our PQRS reporting that used to take, it took a while to run. It could actually be ran within a single session. So within a couple minutes, those PQRS reports are running, whereas we had to schedule them just to run at night and check them in the morning. So we're seeing an improvement across the board, not only from a reporting standpoint, but as far as when the physician's going through and they're clicking items, just check boxes in the chart. There's not a whole lot of latency anymore.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. So I think we're at the stage now where we'd like to open it up for questions from the audience. Sagnik, are you monitoring the questions?
I think Christian will do that.
I do. I have one here. How does Pure compare to SAP to run healthcare on a Citrix solution?
Could you repeat that question, Christian?
How does Pure compare to SAP to run healthcare in a Citrix solution?
Yeah, that's an interesting issue. So this is Vic. I'll go first. That's an interesting question, and I'm not really sure as to the context of that particular question, because there are very, very different workloads. I mean, if you're talking about a specific SAP workload, there are many different workloads within the SAP world compared to the healthcare world, and we have a very robust SAP business. We do some really amazing things in the SAP space from the ERP standpoint, et cetera. SAP HANA and a bunch of other solutions there. So we, happy to follow up on that question if we can get additional details. Happy to answer in additional detail there.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it would depend upon the actual workload, but when you look at some of the larger EMR databases and even some of the, you talk about, the Greenways of the world, or the Efforts of the world, or the Cerns of the world, they all have very complex database solutions that kind of tend to leverage SSD significantly, and I would see the performance metrics, I'm not saying mirror each other, but be fairly similar. The next question is, how are the VMware hosts connected to Pure Storage? Is it via iSCSI or is it via fiber?
In our environment, we actually have set up via a 10 gig iSCSI.
And yeah, I just want to, this is Vic. I mean, there's several options. You can go either fiber, SCSI, over Ethernet, and you have many different configuration options for how you can connect the storage array to either a host directly or to something like an MDS or a fabric of some kind.
As of right now, I have no more questions coming in from the attendees. But I do have a question on, when you decided to build out the environment, was Citrix in your Greenway application your primary reason for that, or is it more for the database side? And once you were able to move, did you move everything over at once, or did you kind of scale out into the environment once you saw the performance increases?
Well, we definitely initially created the environment to host Greenway via Citrix. So our environment was built. We did have probably we had 100% physical servers prior to my arrival, and we did migrate those or build new in VMware. So we're 100% virtualized now. But yeah, we did custom cater that to support Greenway. What we found out, though, of course, like any EMR, is the specs we were given, even the recommended specifications were a little low as far as what we needed. So we had to upgrade our environment, and storage being one of those main factors that needed to be upgraded.
So what are your next steps in moving forward? Do you see other use cases being able to be deployed on within your environment because of leveraging the two technologies?
Oh, absolutely. It makes growth in our environment very simple. If we want to look at acquiring other practices, it's just a matter of spinning a VM up. We're taking advantage of the reduction in disk space from Pure as well. We're actually getting a 9.7 to 1 reduction with Pure. So we're able to expand much quicker than we would have with the traditional spinning disk. So with Citrix, it's just a matter of spinning a VM Citrix server up and publishing a new application. It's really simple.
So it really allows your organization to become more nimble and enable that kind of merger and acquisition that's kind of happening a lot in the industry at this point.
Absolutely.
Great. So Paul, this is Vic. I have another question, and this is more along the Citrix line. So Christian and Paul, I think this is for both of you. Paul, you mentioned in your introduction that your environment leverages Citrix technologies across the board, across the stack, right? So the one thing that's really interesting here is that in your environment, the way that you've deployed the Citrix infrastructure in a very sort of, I like to call it, a converged fashion, a very single stack fashion. Can you talk a little bit about how you accomplish load balancing, which is very, very important for healthcare applications and other applications there as well? Could you just touch on that just a little bit?
So are you referring to load balancing in what aspect?
load balancing your application, load balancing, Citrix, XenApp, for example?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're not confined by storage anymore. So it doesn't matter if I have one Citrix server that I have to pull in all my users to. It's just as easy from a storage standpoint to spin up 10 Citrix servers if I need to balance that load. Storage really isn't a factor in expanding my Citrix environment in my primary application Greenway, just because all of those files, they're going to be the same across the board, same OS, same application files, and the performance is going to be awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, say I add new Greenway users, it's really not a big issue for me because I'll just spin up another server at no cost.
Right, and for your load balancing for your Greenway application, you're using Citrix NetScaler, is that correct?
That's correct. We have 5 of the actual Greenway application servers that the NetScaler balances, in addition to our storefront.
And are you leveraging the virtual load balancer from Citrix, or are you using a physical load balancer?
We're using the virtual one. We're all completely virtual. The benefit of that is we can take advantage of our environment, and to be honest with you, with how we have it set up, we looked at redundant VPX devices too, but we can restore so quickly now, it's not even a factor. We don't need to have that redundancy.
That's great.
And those are some of the things that when we're developing those technologies, like the NetScaler, we try to focus on the software and the actual technology behind the scenes, and not really tie anything to one specific solution for because every customer has a different need, and enabling customers to leverage infrastructure like Pure's and virtualize network infrastructure onto it, leveraging the speed and capabilities of the technology is a valid solution for a majority of our customers. So we try to kind of enable that same functionality, whether it's hardware-based or software-based, across the entire not only the NetScaler environment, but XenApp, Zen Desktop, and Zen Mobile as well.
And that, Christian, that actually leads really nicely into the next question that I had for Paul. Paul, sorry, you're in the crosshairs here. From my perspective, IT really is in order for a healthcare organization to be successful, the IT organization, as part of the overall organization, really needs to be a partner with the goals and futures of the overall healthcare organization in order for the parent organization to be successful, right? So IT is an enabler, right? It's long past the we're here to keep the lights on. I mean, keeping the lights on is table stakes. You've got to keep the lights on, otherwise people start to have lots of problems, and patient care starts to suffer. So you run into a lot of issues there, right? So from that perspective, if you just focus on the innovation aspect of what you are enabling, can you talk a little bit more about some of the ways that you and your organization are looking to improve patient satisfaction, organizational efficiency, provider efficiency, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, like actually you said, when you take storage out of the mix, we can focus on the actual business. So it's already allowed us to do some things like Phreesia for patient check-in. It's allowed us to start to focus more on telemedicine. We can actually look at our Net Promoter Score and see what areas we need to focus on. Since deploying Pure and Citrix and these other tertiary products, we've been able to do things like form a patient engagement team, a patient experience team. All of this stuff that, as a healthcare organization, you should be able to do, but to be honest with you, if you're not a hospital, you're not going to have the resources to be able to focus on that. So it's just allowing us to focus more on the business. IT in our organization, I'm very fortunate to be involved in the management aspect of the practices. So anytime something comes up over the practice, we're always looking for new and innovative ways to do things, whether it be focus on marketing, focus on patient engagement, anything like that. we can actually take the time and do now, whereas before it wasn't going to happen.
That's great. Great to hear, and great to be great to be part of being able to enable that to happen. So thank you for that. So Christian, do you have any more questions? Have any more questions come in?
No more questions have come in, and I'm good on my end as well.
Yeah, I'm good on my end. So Paul, do you have did you have any closing thoughts or any questions that you might have from your end?
No, not at all. I'm very happy with the Pure and Citrix environment, and it's made my life easier. So, not at all.
Great.
We'd like to hear.
Thank you. So Christian, back to you then.
At this point, we will be closing the webinar. If you do have any more questions, we'll keep it open for a few